The James Show Podcast.
What's really going on with Venezuela? Because when you and I were talking about this last week, I was telling you, with all the boats getting blown up, I feel like we're missing part of the story. And the reason I was saying that to you last week and probably 2 weeks ago when the whole boat blowing up trend started, it's like a new social media trend. People are doing the cinnamon challenge, the blowing up boat challenge. But the thing that I found weird about it is why Venezuela? This isn't about drugs. If you wanted to stop the flow of drugs and have the most effective boat blowing up operation, you wouldn't start with Venezuela. You'd probably start with Colombia, wouldn't you? Or maybe Mexico. So I suspected, and you were probably with me on this, I'll give you credit, that something else is going on there. Well, you were right. We were right. Something else is going on there. And I have to give credit to 60 Minutes of all places. I give them crap, and their reporting wasn't even unbiased there, but they had a couple of guests on that were kind of tipping the hand here. What this is really all about is flipping Venezuela, is getting rid of Maduro and the socialist government of Venezuela that has just been grinding its poor population underfoot ever since Hugo Chavez started his little socialism experiment in the 90s.
Earlier this month, President Trump announced he approved covert CIA operations inside Venezuela.
What do you think removing Maduro would signal to other socialist regimes in the area?
It'll be the end of Cuba.
Cuba relies on subsidized Venezuelan oil to prop up its economy.
America is going to take care of the Southern Hemisphere, and we're going to make sure that there's freedom and democracy.
So this is about more than drugs then. This isn't about, drugs may be a part of it, but it seems really odd that you would, in order to stop drugs, just blow people up. We don't do that with drug dealers in America. We don't do that with all the drugs that are coming over the border from Mexico. So this wasn't about drugs at all. This was about cutting off Maduro's revenue line so they can topple his government. When they admit that they're doing all kinds of CIA covert operations and they won't go into any kind of detail on it, something's up. So that's what this is about. And you just found out on the James Show, didn't you? Now, but think about it like this. Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserves of any country on planet Earth. There's no reason these people should be starving. However, when you kick out the American companies that build the platforms and have the downhole pumps and all the good rigs and the horizontal drilling and the ability to keep it up and build these things and expand and whatnot, and you kick all of us out, in fact, you steal all of our platforms and equipment, they just took everything that Chevron and Exxon and everyone else had left down there. They even took it from the other countries, BP, a British company, Shell, a Dutch company. They just took all their crap. They appropriated, nationalized their oil industry. So this is ours now, but they can't keep it up. So actually their oil output's been declining. And in order to make up what little revenue that they were getting out of the oil industry, they moved into the drug industry. And so now if the oil industry is declining and the price of oil is so low, it's got to be choking them off anyway. If they lose their drug revenue, Maduro's really up a creek. So this is about regime change in Venezuela. And not just Venezuela. The guy was spelling out that on 60 Minutes here, that if Venezuela falls, Cuba's going to be the next to go. And it seems like it would be pretty easy. So you mean to tell me we just got to cut off some narco-terrorism dollars from going into Venezuela and we can flip two of the long-standing thorns in our side from the Western Hemisphere? Yeah, sounds kind of right. Now check this out. 60 Minutes actually, sort of, started to get the analysis right on what happened in Venezuela. They actually said the words. Sharon Alfonsi, who is narrating this, actually put some blame on socialist policies. And then, of course, she steered it right into, other than that, it's America's fault and capitalism's evil and all that stuff. But listen, how do you do a report on this and not admit that when the country's fortunes turned, it wasn't on the heel of socialism?
Freedom isn't the only thing in short supply in Venezuela. Hunger, chronic blackouts, and a scarcity of essential medicines plague the country. Today, more than 70% of residents live in poverty. It is a stunning reversal of fortune for a nation that was once one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Venezuela's economy was crippled by disastrous socialist policies and mismanagement. A crisis exacerbated by 20 years of U.S. sanctions imposed in direct response to the regime's anti-democratic actions, human rights violations, and corruption. That triggered triple-digit inflation and a humanitarian crisis.
Yeah, America and our sanctions triggered triple-digit inflation. Yeah, we made him print a bunch of money. We did that. Sure we did. So eventually she had to try and somehow blame us, but at least she gave a mention there to the socialism aspect of that. There was another part where she was actually allowed to go on the street. This is super rare these days. The press does not get a whole lot of visas to go to Venezuela. In fact, I can't remember the last time I saw a report from an American outlet actually in Venezuela. But Sharon Alfonso was down there, and she was on the street talking to some vendors in an open-air market. They had some tents lined up on a sidewalk. So it looks kind of like you're walking around First Monday or some farmer's market. And a guy in like a little government hat, it looked like a ball cap, but it had like an official seal on it. He's a chivato, just like they had in Scarface. Listen to this.
Are you afraid of the Americans, or are you afraid about speaking about it?
Sí, me habla el tema.
Talking about it. Okay, I understand.
One feels nervous and anxious, he said. We don't want anything to happen. This woman chimed in. The Venezuelan people shouldn't be held responsible for the actions of its president. Just then, off camera, a man told her, "You can't say that. Who provided you with this space to work?" He was wearing a hat with an emblem of the government civilian military force.
Hey, it's a chivato. The non-Hispanic people, that's slang for a snitch. This is a word. I think I first heard this in the movie Scarface when he did his little spiel here.
You a communist? Huh? How do you like it? They tell you all the time what to do, what to think, what to feel. Do you want to be like a sheep? Like all those other people, man?
I don't have to listen to this.
Do you want to work 8, 10 hours? You own nothing? You got nothing? Do you want a chivato on every corner, man, looking after you, watching everything you do, everything you say, man?
And then there was the part where he was in Bolivia and the other drug kingpin, Sosa, had taken Omar Suarez and hung him out of the flying helicopter because he was a snitch. And then he asked Tony Montana, "Are you a chivato?"
So how do I know you're not a chivato too, Tony?
Yeah, so then we actually got to see a chivato. It was on 60 Minutes last night. That was kind of cool. I'd heard about him, I heard about him so much. So is this cool? Are you cool with flipping over Maduro and Venezuela and getting rid of a socialist government? Do you think it'll work? Do you think just some other idiot socialist will take over if you can get rid of Maduro? Are you scared about or concerned about boots on the ground in Venezuela? I doubt it'll happen. I really doubt the American people have the stomach for it. But a lot of open-ended question there. So, yes, we were suspicious last week, and we confirmed it over the weekend. The boat strikes are not about drugs. And so the same thing that tore Venezuela down is exactly what they're proposing for New York City. I mean, they had what was the wealthiest country in Latin America now turned into a place where you have to break into the zoo to eat the animals. And so this is
New York City.
This is not something New York is immune to. This is not something America is immune to. We make these terrible decisions. We're going to get the same terrible results, and we're going to deserve them. And, we're going to talk about socialism here, and it seems like sort of an ethereal, far-off concept. But when I look at, what am I talking about the rest of the show today? So let's see here. I'm talking about the socialist food stamp program that might get cut off on November 1st. I'm talking about the new public transportation train that's opening from Plano to DFW. I'm talking about the so many of these other issues that we're talking about, law enforcement and monetary policy and all these other things, these social programs. This should really hit closer to home than it does with a lot of people. And they're packaging it in the same way it was sold in Venezuela. Hey, we're the richest country in Latin America. There's no reason we can't make sure everyone has some food. Everyone has basic health care. Everyone has, the dignity of some basic necessities here. Then we're going to make a government program for all of it. We're going to socialize a bunch of industries, the oil industry, a whole bunch of other stuff, and we're going to make it fair. That was the same verbiage Hugo Chavez used in the late 90s to seduce the Venezuelans into giving up their prosperity for equality, and they got neither. Here's AOC yesterday at the Zoran Mamdani rally in New York City.
It is a time such as today when demanding affordable housing is considered a radical and outlandish act, that we can afford our lives, our groceries, our transit is considered an outlandish and radical act, that we accept our neighbor as ourselves, a radical and outlandish act. But we must remember, in a time such as this, we are not the crazy ones, New York City.
No, you're not the crazy ones. You're just implementing socialism. What could possibly go wrong? Dennis in Arlington, you're on WBAP.
Hello, James. My thought is, like Venezuela had to go, let the animals out of the zoo to eat them. I think they can hunt them on the street quite easily, especially as the tenements pour out about not getting their SNAP payments. And just a little tongue-in-cheek stuff there.
No, that was funny. I love that.
Well, each state is supposed to be assuming responsibility for their SNAP, and I think you were speaking on that recently.
Yes, and I will be later today, too, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, huh? Okay, that's just my observation, and thanks to you for a lot of it. Thanks, man.
Hey, great observation. Look, I think it's time we go review the montage I made last year, and this was made because when Kamala Harris was first had the spotlight shown on her because everyone realized Joe Biden, we can't hide the fact that he's just a walking human Roomba right now. She came out with her first just slew of ideas, and then they shut her up the rest of the campaign because they were so bad. They were so socialist. And so we went through on the James show last year, and there was an interview with an Austrian immigrant who she grew up in Austria, and in the middle of her schooling, Hitler took over in Austria, and he changed a whole bunch of policies. And when she talked about the policy changes, how is this different than what AOC just said or what Hugo Chavez just did? Or I guess now it's Nicolas Maduro. But tell me, is this right wing or is this left wing?
So the first thing what happened, we had to carry national ID cards. The newspaper, before it hit the street, it was being censored by the government. Everybody was getting a guaranteed income from the government.
Oh.
In order to achieve that, they had to raise our taxes up to 70%. Those who were on the lower income level, they got subsidized housing, food stamps, they got heating fuel, and they got a certain amount of payment from the government for each child. Before Hitler, of course, the moms stayed home and they raised their families. But under socialism, the moms were being put out into the workforce, so what happened to the children? Child care centers. It was all free for everybody. We even prayed in public school before class and after class. We were being told not to listen to our parents. They were just old-fashioned old fogies. Hitler also nationalized our car industry. Hitler nationalized our banks. He nationalized our healthcare system. When a couple was not 100% Aryan and the woman was pregnant, she was forced to have an abortion. We also had euthanasia, killing people. We also had gun control. Keep your guns and stack up on your ammo.
Okay, so just to review there, like what's the big difference there? What is the difference between what Mamdani, AOC, what they're proposing, the Bernie Sanders in America is proposing, and what Hitler did? Where he did welfare, he did cash payments, he did food stamps, he did heating assistance, utilities assistance. He did Section 8. He did higher taxes, up to 70%. They encourage women in the workplace. No, don't stay home and raise your kids. No. And if that's inconvenient for you, free daycare. Who proposed free daycare? Kamala did last summer. No religion in public school. There's one party that's trying to put the 10 Commandments up in classrooms. There's one party that's trying to fight it. They took the Bible out of library classrooms. Who took religion out of public schools? Oh, that's right, Hitler. Who's telling you your parents are old fogies? You don't need to listen to them. There's this new progressive way of thinking where Hitler nationalized auto industry and banks and healthcare. Now, we haven't got to cars and banks yet, but there is one party that wants to nationalize healthcare. Which one is it in this country? Which party's pro-abortion? Which party's pro-euthanasia? Which party's pro-gun control? And y'all are telling us that this is the new way to go? Here's AOC again yesterday.
To demand an affordable and decent housing, a decent wage, the right to health care, that we pay to care for our people instead of the flattening of Palestinians and oppressed people abroad is not a radical act. It is basic and core humanity. That is why the election of Zohran is as important as our cause today. Childcare, buses, rent, and our rights.
Yeah, and I forgot to leave out maybe just a little bit anti-Semitic, that Hitler guy, right? You know, when you live in a big city like New York City, and you never really have a reason to leave.
New York City!
You have a bubble going on where, I don't know, 70, 80% of the people around you are on Team Blue. The other 20, 30% are cowed into not speaking their mind and just keeping their mouth shut and keeping their head down and not being a part of the conversation. You have reason to believe that every sane person thinks like you. And so when you turn on the TV, you've got to be befuddled like, hey, why don't you promise the people what we really want? We want to give them free housing and free food, and who wouldn't want all that? Well, they're finally saying it. I was playing a couple examples for you in the last segment. If you missed it, go check out the podcast after the show. But here is AOC after pining for socialism and all the same socialist programs socialists always pine for. Here she is actively telling constituents to break the law and fight ICE.
Like that we saw last week, a young woman in a polka dot dress standing up to a secret police officer in Canal Street. She is New York City. The young man in a white helmet jumping off his bicycle saying, "Not in my neighborhood." That is New York City.
Yeah, you see these people breaking the law by interfering with law enforcement officers executing their duties? Yeah, let's encourage that and keep doing that. Okay, wow. So you're advocating for the same siren song that took down Venezuela and, I don't know, every other socialist country, including Austria back in the 1930s. Hello? And then she's also encouraging people to break the law. I cannot believe that this guy's about to win. I can't believe that she's about to get reelected, yet here we are. This is Marshall in Bedford. You're on WBAP.
I would like to say just a couple of things. Thank you for taking my call. Socialism, communism has never worked for anybody except for the upper ups, the politicians that instituted, but the masses are the ones that suffer. And my father always told me, nothing is free. There's always a backside that's hidden, and that's where you get screwed. Pardon my language.
Well, no, and look, you're bringing up a little nuance that's worthy of mentioning here. If you're Zoran Mamdani or you're AOC, socialism really isn't scary because you're going to be one of the people that's in the inner party that's going to benefit from it. So, like the example I like to use, remember the Orwell book Animal Farm, Marshall?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a scary book for everybody except for the pigs. If you're the pigs, that's a pretty sweet setup you got there. You got to tell all these people, oh, yeah, we're all going to be equal now, and none of us are going to be rich anymore. I mean, we got to sleep in the house, just, for business sake. And I know we said no one's going to walk upright, and we're starting to walk upright. And I don't know, said no one's going to eat at the table anymore, and no one's going to dine with humans. But, we just have to break these few rules so everyone can be equal. It's the same damn thing. And so, it's the same thing with 1984. 1984 isn't a scary book if you're in the inner party. 1984 is a scary book if you're the rest of us, but if you're one of the people that is pulling the reins of power, that's a sweet deal they got.
Well, there's very little space at the top of the pyramid, just for a few, but the rest of them, it's on their shoulders, and they're the ones that are left out. And why common sense does not dictate to people that have a half a brain that it just does not work. And all you got to do is look at history to prove it.
Yeah, okay, but when you add up both the media and academia not telling that story, it's understandable why young people don't know it. And when Hugo Chavez died, you people who want equality and are worried about the maldistribution of wealth, there was one family that was billionaires left in Venezuela, and it was the Hugo Chavez family. There's your equality, people. This is Roger in Grapevine. You're on WBAP.
Yeah, just one comment. Socialism doesn't work, and Margaret Thatcher said when you run out of other people's money, it's a failure. And U.S. government better not bail out New York when they fail.
Well, we do have the precedent where New York has failed before, and I think some people listening remember when it went bankrupt in the 70s and they asked for a bailout, and who told them? Because it was on like the front of the New York Post. I remember the headline that said New York City dropped dead. And what was that, Reagan? Was it Jimmy Carter? Was it Nixon? Was it Ford? Who denied the bailout of New York City before I was coherent? I learned this in retrospect. Do you remember that, Roger?
I do not, but it sure wouldn't have been Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt it, but if I don't know, I'm not going to speak with any sort of authority here. Let's see. Oh, okay. It was Gerald Ford, and it was the New York Daily News. Thanks for making me think of that, Roger. Good call. Yeah, Ford to City, drop dead was the famous headline from the New York Daily News during the New York City financial crisis in 1975. Did they learn their lessons? No, here we are 50 years later, and they're doing the same mistakes. And I'm sure you know that unless the government shutdown gets concluded pretty much immediately or in the next couple of days, we're going to have EBT cards all across America that aren't going to be refilled. Uh-oh. And so regular listeners of the James Show have been delighting over a flurry of threats and complaints and lamentations and wailing and gnashing of teeth. But now as we get closer to the date, it really feels like we may get to taste a little bit of this, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. Here's one thing that I can update on the narrative is there seems to be a date of action here, a first date of action.
People, my people, I wish we stopped crying about this EBT card. At the end of the day, they trying to see is we going to stick together. And we are going to stick together. November 3rd at 6:30, we're going to Walmart. And at 7:30, we're going to walk out of Walmart with our buggies, okay? The thing is, they can catch everybody. You feel me? All you got to do is run, Forrest, run, okay? We have to stick together. It don't even matter. As long as we going to have everything we need for Thanksgiving, that's all that matters. Run, Forrest, run. Remember, put it in your calendar. November 3rd, 6:30 to 7:30. You better be running up them.
You know, I'm feeling this strange instinct to defend Walmart, like Walmart needs my defense, like the biggest retailer in the world needs little old Parker to step up. But I don't know. I feel like getting a posse together. Who wants to join a posse? We'll be patrolling Walmart ourselves, just going back and forth between the two entrances. We don't have to be on horseback or anything, but can we get like the Walmart? Look, and the reason why it's not like, James, what kind of simp is shilling for billionaires? And I'm not. Listen, Walmart is woven in the fabric of America at this point. And as someone who, my Austrian economics can verify that there is not one company or government program or combination of government programs that has done more to improve the standard of living of the common man in America than Walmart. Walmart is the greatest anti-poverty program America has come up with thus far. America's poor rely on Walmart more than any other company. So it's insane, especially if you care about poor people, to have this company hurt, to have this company attacked, to have this company damaged. And that's a very short-sighted thinking on the part of the food stamp crash outs. As long as we get our food for Thanksgiving, how long do you think this method is going to last? If you get away with the first time, we're going to have what? We're either going to have stores ramping up their anti-theft measures, whether it's the cops getting in or they're hiring private security or they start taking things away or locking things up or who knows what they're going to do. Maybe checking every basket before it goes out, putting in turnstiles. They're either going to do that or just close the stores in the neighborhoods where the people are stealing. This is not a long-term solution. You have to think more than 15 minutes in front of your face or you're not going to like the results. Yeah, so November 3rd, they're supposed to start shopping at 6:30. At 7:30, they all walk out at the same time. What happens if they all walk out at the same time and there's just a bunch of people there with our arms crossed saying, did you pay for that? And then turn around and go back in. What are they going to do? Are they going to fight all of us? What if we outnumber them? What if we outgun them? Interesting thing to think about. And so there's still a bunch of people pushing back on this too. But there's also this weird morality twist that I'm noticing in this food stamp debate. Because somehow you have to, in your head, you have to rationalize something that's irrational. How is it morally wrong for me to take food stamps away from you? Well, not only are they saying it's morally wrong, they're saying it's It's evil. In fact, there's a weird racial angle to it as well. Check this one out.
Now, slavery and police brutality aside, do you know how incredibly evil you have to be to deny someone food? What deep, dark depths of hell do you have to stoop to find it in your heart to not want the next person to have a hot dog?
All right, stop it right there real quick. I don't want to deny anyone food. I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm just keeping more of my own money. I'm going to prevent them from taking things away from other people. They're the ones that are taking stuff. They are the ones that are getting food based on the money that they didn't work for, that someone else worked for, that was taken from someone else. I'm going to stop the taking of stuff from people. Food stamps are taking things from people. So when you end the theft from people, I mean, they call it taxes, but is it really that different? It's involuntary. It's taken from you whether you like it or not, and given to other people by government. It's legal, but it's still theft. I am stopping the taking of things. And I am not stopping anyone from getting food. If you want to get food, go get some food. You don't have any money? We'll sell something. Do you not own anything? We'll get a job. Or rely on the private voluntary donations of other human beings around you. You don't have any friends? You don't have any family? You don't have any brothers, sisters, mom, dads, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, cousins, second cousins, third cousins, college roommate, former boyfriend, current boyfriend. There's not one other human being on earth that will help you out. There's not one person will say, yeah, you can crash on my couch, or sure, you can. I'll feed you dinner. You don't have one friend, or you don't have one friend that's not a parasite. But check this out. It gets really ugly after this, because once they start on that moral crusade, then they get all fired up about it. And once they convince themselves, well, it's evil if I can't take money from you to buy food, look at what this leads to.
That's a different level of savagery. That's why I say the DNA, the composition of the DNA is not normal. Because we've already established that all lives don't really matter, even though that's what you all love to say whenever you want to deflect. It's your brains that we need to study. What is it with you all that you are so, what is with your brains that you are so committed to people being subservient to you? Be the most mediocre people with the most mediocre history and the most mediocre culture, if you even want to call it that I've ever seen or heard of in my life. What do you have that you haven't stolen?
That's such a weird form of racism there. Yeah, white people don't have a culture. I mean, that's ridiculous. From Leonardo da Vinci to Amadeus Mozart to going to the freaking moon. Sorry, that's not enough for you. But look, that aside, that got weird and racial, right? What the heck was that? White people are trying to take food away from black people? Is that how you see this? God, that's kind of racist in itself. Because she's implying that without white people having money taken from them, black people wouldn't be able to feed themselves. I don't think that's the case. I don't think they are some disparate other that based on the color of their skin, they're not able to feed themselves while white people can. I mean, that's sort of a white supremacist position she's taken, but I doubt she's a white supremacist. So I've been quite amused by the food stamp crash out and the moral twisting and mental gymnastics that's being had by the people crashing out. I just want to let you know the date, the first big date we have of action. And this is just viral videos. I don't know if this is going to stick or if the date's going to move or some other viral video is going to supersede it. But I just wanted you to be updated on that's what we have thus far in the great food stamp crash out of 2025.
The James Show Podcast.